Just because someone is kind, it doesn't make them a good listener. I think I'm fairly kind, and sometimes I am a great listener, and sometimes I frankly suck at listening. Today, we're going to look a little bit more about how you can be super kind and still not be a great listener and what you can do to improve your listening skills. So, our family has recently decided that we want to move to the country, as half the world has decided with COVID. And through that process, we have worked briefly with a few different agents. One of the agents that we worked with was really struggling with listening to our perspective. Now, this person was incredibly kind. When I first met her, she had such a good ability to make a connection with you. She was personable and relatable, and I just had a really good feeling about her. But as we got further into the process of looking at homes with her, I started to realize that she was really having a hard time hearing our perspective and hearing our no's, and was kind of letting her perspective of the situation influence decisions that were being made. And so despite this real nice kindness and ability to make connections with others, she wasn't able to hear what we were saying. And the reason I want to share this is because I get the sense that people often think that they are phenomenal listeners because they're really nice people. And already, if you think that you are always an amazing listener in every single situation, that's a bit of a red flag, because my gut tells me that we all fluctuate in our ability to listen. Yes, some people are more skilled at it than others. But I think that even very skilled listeners have moments where they are tired and cranky and don't feel like interacting with people or feel overwhelmed by a situation, and that ability to be present with others and really connect might not come out as much as it does in other situations. Now, some of the things that we were experiencing with this agent were, for instance, that we would share our perspective on something, and she would acknowledge it, but then just her perspective would trump ours, no matter how many times we would bring back up our perception of the situation. So I'll give you a concrete example of this. She would show us a property, and you could see from the photo that you could see the two neighbors. And part of the reason we're moving is we want to be in the country. We don't want to be able to see our neighbors. And so right away we would say, it's not, so much what we're looking for. We want to be in the country. And she would say, well, let's just keep it on your list. You never know. And we would say, no, I can see my neighbors where I live now, and I like my house, I like my neighborhood. The reason we're moving is to stay in the country. For sure, we're not going to buy a house where the neighbors are that close. And again, she would say, well, just keep it on your list. And so there was this constantly a need to repeat and reassert yourself 3 to 4 times on the same point. And sometimes even then, it wasn't listened to. So a few things you can do to become a better listener so that you're not sort of interacting with people around you in that way and inserting your perspective above theirs is you need to be able to adjust based on what is coming out of the other person's mouth. So if you're really on a path, and that's the path you're driving people down because you want things to happen a certain way, and you're not listening to and reflecting on what the other person's saying and able to adjust how you're responding to that person consequently, then you're not truly listening to what they're saying. And that person's going to be left with the feeling of not being heard. Another key point is to not make any assumptions. So one thing we were experiencing was that she would show us a property and she would say, okay, so we'll keep that one on your list. And she was just assuming that based on prior conversations, she was deciding for us which houses we liked and which ones we didn't. She was assuming that she knew fully all of our criteria to be able to decide whether a house was a yes or a no for a visit. And so making those assumptions rather than clarifying it makes people not necessarily feel heard, because the chance that your assumptions, that you're guessing correctly 100% of the time, probably not that high. And then another point is to ask questions. So again, getting back to those assumptions, instead of jumping in and deciding for us or attempting to decide for us what houses we were going to visit. Ask questions. Say things like, so what do you think about that? How would you like to proceed next? What would work for you? And that doesn't mean that you have to do what the other person is saying, but it opens the door to understand how somebody else is experiencing the situation, which then allows you to adjust, like we talked about earlier on. And so these are all skills that can be incorporated into the workplace. So watch yourself as you're managing a team. Watch how often you're having a tendency to jump in and make all of those decisions for your team members the way the agent was for us. Because I'll let you know very clearly that what happens at the end of the day is people feel dissatisfied. People don't like to not have any involvement in interactions or in conversations and to have the direction totally given by the other person. It needs to be done complementarily between two people. And when you start to do that, you'll start to realize that you're much better able to get to the bottom of what somebody else wants and to work together to help them get there.